Do you
Yes,
wish to
ma'am.
offer that amendment, Ms. Boebert?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Great. The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes in support of her amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, tribes often face complex statutory structure applicable to energy development on Indian lands, and it is necessary to tailor legislative proposals to avoid unnecessary confusion. My amendment does just that. I'm offering this amendment to preserve the sovereign interests of affected tribes. Without changes, this bill will negatively impact many people, but primarily tribal nations who participate in energy development. This is something that tribes in my district are very much looking forward to and having this presented. And I encourage my colleagues to adopt this amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The chair will recognize herself in opposition to this amendment. The chair will simply note that methane, VOCs, and air toxins from oil and gas sites disproportionately impact Native American, minority, and low-income communities. And I would frankly say, just because some tribes produce significant amounts of oil and gas and don't support stricter methane safeguards doesn't mean that we shouldn't act to protect health, climate, and taxpayer benefits for everyone. And I also want to note that this bill requires the BLM to conduct consultation with tribes in developing any new rule, as it should be. And I know that Secretary Holland, a former member of this committee, who will be in charge of this, will have real tribal consultation. And so I would urge my colleagues to reject the amendment. I'll yield back. And I will ask, does any other member wish to speak on the Boebert number 2 amendment? Please state your
Madam
name.
Chair.
Mr. Gosar, I'll recognize you for 5 minutes.
Yeah, so in the last Congress, we had this conversation in regards to an area of New Mexico that they wanted to set aside. And what we wanted to make sure was those native families that actually had easements allotted to them, that had interest in oil and gas, have access to them and being able to continue those royalties aspects. So I want to make sure that this is also included, that the gentlelady from Colorado's amendment is very timely and making sure that both sides of the issue are represented stringently, because we don't want unintended consequences for those 500 and some odd families that have easements in areas of oil and gas, and we need to make sure that their voices are heard as well. So I applaud the gentlewoman from Colorado, and I want her amendment to be voted up, and I support it, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Does any other member wish seek recognition? And please state your name.
Madam Chairman, Representative Ledger Fernandez seeks recognition.
Representative Ledger Fernandez, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I always welcome it when members support tribal sovereignty. I would have loved to have received more support on the last bill for tribal sovereignty and recognition of their interests on their cultural sites. However, we must remember that this amendment is not supporting Native Americans. Instead, this amendment would perpetuate the environmental injustice that tribes have suffered for far too long. The amendment ignores tribes' long history of environmental contamination, including radioactive uranium tillings, abandoned coal mines, orphaned oil and gas wells, and yes, pervasive methane and accompanying pollution impacting their lungs. Methane from oil and gas operations degrades air quality and public health. Equipment leaks and intentional venting release methane and volatile organic compounds, which lead to harmful ground level ozone pollution and hazardous air pollutants such as benzene, a known carcinogen. We know that here in New Mexico, we have higher rates of asthma and carcinogen, and we believe that that is related to, as the chairwoman has pointed out, the oil and gas development, as has been indicated, that Native Americans and minority communities suffer higher rates if they are close to such development. In fact, in 2018, the Department of Health and Human Services recognized that American Indian and Alaska Native children almost twice as likely to have asthma as non-Hispanic white children. Not only would this amendment prolong the environmental justice that tribal communities face, but it would deprive tribes of the royalties or taxes from vented, leaked, and flared methane. Once again, the venting and the flaring is a loss of that resource. So the regulations in this bill apply to operators. They don't apply to Native Americans, they apply to operators. So Representative Boebert's amendment would allow pollution to continue in Indian country, but nowhere else. That is just not right. I urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment.
Gentlelady yields back. Does any other member seek recognition? Please state your name.
Madam Chair, it's Westerman.
Mr. Westerman, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to yield time to Representative Boebert.
Gentlelady's recognized.
Thank you, Ranking Member Westerman. I just want to note that zero tribal consultation occurred in putting this bill together. Zero tribal witnesses at the March 23rd hearing. There were zero outreach in the wake of Southern Utes submitting very serious and detailed comments to the committee. These tribal voices and concerns should not be ignored. And I yield back.
Mr. Westerman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support the gentlelady's amendment, urge a yes vote, and I yield back.
Any other members seek recognition? Seeing none, the vote will occur on the Boebert Amendment number 2. Everybody unmute. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Ms. Boebert, do you request to record a vote on this amendment?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair.
A recorded vote has been requested. The chair will announce that the vote will be postponed till the time established by the chairman. Mr.